The 2013-14 year has been another momentous one for NZEI Te Riu Roa. Member campaigns created a clear and high-profile opposition to the government's reform programs and ensured education was a key battleground for the government and all other political parties in the run-up to the 2014 general election.
The Ministry's radar.
The year kicked off with a highly successful annual conference, at which world-renowned educator Professor Yong Zhao provided a welcome boost to our campaign to immunise against the germ agenda.
So to protect our children's future, to create a new education, places new demand on all of us.
Another conference highlight was the presentation of Te Amakura to Education President Susan Hopgood. The Rākau Corridor travelled the world as part of the International Year of Action for Education, which kicked off on October the 5th at Gisborne, where it will end on World Teachers' Day next month. The government struggled to gain traction with its policies throughout the year. July 2013 saw the Minister backtrack in her bid to mandate the Progress and Consistency tool after NZEI Te Riu Roa and other sector organisations rejected it. PACT remains in a trial phase, and members have responded positively to NZEI's call not to engage with the development or rollout of the tool.
These young people will be going there because the mainstream system has not met their needs.
5 charter schools opened in Auckland and Northland in early 2014, amid continued controversy about their cost and lack of transparency. NZEI Te Riu Roa has continued to be a leading critic of the policies, and the schools have been dogged by unstable roles, funding blowouts and staffing problems.
Babies could be pitted against each other to meet standards targets.
Nevertheless, government was calling for applications for a second round to open at the beginning of 2015, with a specific focus on attracting applicants wishing to establish charter schools for children aged 0 to 8.
For now, Ms Parata is insisting it's about getting the best results for children of all ages. Katie Bradford, One News.
Other elements of the germ agenda continued to be promoted. These included a review of governance structures in preparation for a full review of the Education Act, as well as legislation that devalues the profession and removes the right of teachers to directly elect their own professional body.
There'll be any teachers on the body of the new Teachers' Council.
The Education Amendment Bill to establish the new Education Council of Aotearoa, New Zealand, had its first reading in Parliament in March. Despite overwhelming support for the direct election of teachers to the body, government's majority in the Select Committee prevailed. Despite concerns about the unreliability of ropey national standards and ngā whanaakitanga, the Ministry of Education published school data on a region-by-region basis in July last year, causing the creation of league tables by some media. NZEI Te Riu Roa again warned of how this unfairly labelled some schools and children as failing, particularly those in poorer communities. The concern about growing inequality saw NZEI Te Riu Roa work in close collaboration with other child advocacy organisations throughout the year. In the run-up to local government and DHB elections in 2013, we supported the Tick for Kids campaign, launched by Auckland Mayor Len Brown at Balmoral School, alongside Every Child Counts and the New Zealand Medical Association.
In New Zealand, we don't get the same opportunity.
NZEI Te Riu Roa continued active involvement through 2014 with Tick for Kids, now an umbrella for 33 child advocacy groups, with the aim of putting children's needs at the centre of the general election debate.
So that's why we've said free after school programs and free holiday care.
Every researcher in the Western world will tell you that's not true.
2014 began with the Taking Stock Moving Forward conference, where an impressive lineup of international education experts met to discuss the NZEI commissioned RAINS report on national standards. Conference goers were inspired to oppose the ongoing implementation of the Germ agenda, the next element of which was revealed by the PM at a business meeting during the last day of the conference.
Into teaching and school leadership over the next 4 years.
Seeking to regain momentum on education, John Key announced the $359 million Investing in Educational Success policy.
The first new role is an executive principal.
While a significant investment in education, the policy signalled major system change without sector consultation, and NZEI Te Riu Roa took a measured response of principled engagement in the policy working party and months of intensive discussion amongst the membership.
When I heard about the $359 million investment, I thought this was an awesome opportunity for education.
I don't think this package can be reshaped. I think we need to get out and mobilise our communities.
Not everything in this new plan is necessarily bad.
In March 2014, during the International Summit of the Teaching Profession, members took action to call on the government to address inequality, both inside and outside the school gate. While the government used the summit to showcase its IES policy, NZEI members called for a living wage for learning, pointing out that insufficient family income resulting in child poverty was a major factor in children's success at school, and that many support staff in schools earned less than a living wage. As part of its campaign around poverty, NZEI Te Riu Roa supported the Mana Party's Feed the Kids bill, which would provide free breakfasts and lunches in decile 1 to 4 schools. The government did eventually broker its own privately funded policy, and as the issue of child poverty gained traction, all major political parties announced policies to address the mounting concern.
For Babies campaign launched at Parliament today says the government should extend paid parental leave.
NZEI Te Riu Roa has also been a member of the 26 for Babies campaign, calling for the extension of paid parental leave to enable bonding with babies and reduce financial stress on families. Get up, stand up. On another front of the war on inequality, NZEI Te Riu Roa has continued to support the wider union movement in actions to combat law reforms that will drive down wages and conditions. Our leadership in contesting this government's agenda has been widely acknowledged and welcomed by the union movement.
During the time when I've had confusions with my pay, I haven't been able to pay my mortgage.
Meanwhile, Novo Pay continued to create serious stress in schools and to hemorrhage public money as costly fix-ups were put in place. A year after its introduction, an NZEI Te Riu Roa survey showed that Novo Pay was costing the country's schools an extra $100,000 a week in administration costs, while in term 1 of 2014, 80% of schools were still reporting major problems.
And a lemon. Now the government's taking control of the troubled Novo Pay system from...
Government took over the system in August, but NZEI continues to assist members with their Novo Pay issues and call for compensation for schools disadvantaged by the failures.
Discussion with schools to try and get some sense of what a compensation would be like.
We're very keen that Christchurch has a schooling system that is the envy of others, and that's what this is all about.
In September 2013, the Minister confirmed the closure of 7 schools in Christchurch, while Phillipstown School continued to fight against the Minister's earlier decision to merge it with Woolston School on the Woolston site.
I can tell you unequivocally and emphatically that this is a genuine consultation.
The High Court found that the Minister's decision was unlawful. However, in April 2014, she again announced Phillipstown will close. NZEI Te Riu Roa has been using an initiative grant to employ a staff member specifically to ensure that schools and members affected by the many Christchurch mergers and closures have support throughout the process. Kindergarten teacher members took action in late 2013 to raise awareness about the impact of cuts to funding and the importance of quality leadership in early childhood education. Members rallied outside the Education Minister's Porirua office and took part in activities across the country as part of a nationwide Green Day of Action. The actions were part of a campaign to ensure kindergarten teachers retained pay parity with their primary colleagues and that the importance of leadership was recognised. Members successfully won a settlement that included both parity and a new allowance for head teachers. School support staff also celebrated significant progress in a hard-fought campaign to get fairer recognition and a better career pathway. An agreement reached with the Ministry of Education in June to revise pay scales and better recognise experience and skills was a big step forward. However, NZEI Te Riu Roa acknowledges that there's still a long way to go, and the union will continue to fight for fair recognition and remuneration, including central funding, so schools can afford to pay support staff fairly. Meanwhile, after 10 years of work by NZEI Te Riu Roa, Asset was launched in February. The Advanced Classroom Expertise Teacher Allowance recognises exemplary classroom teaching practice and was introduced as part of the settlement of the Primary Teachers Collective. The asset recognition process and allowance is a crucial milestone in our journey to introduce career pathway options for teachers that reward excellent classroom teaching practice. Amongst a number of NZEI Te Riu Roa conferences in the past year was the National Pacifica Whono held in Auckland. Titled Leo Pacifica, Pacific Voice and Action, the whono focused on growing Pacifica leadership and included keynote speakers Te Manakura Judith Nowataski, Lili Tuioti and Professor Tuiolu Sulusulu Damon Salesa.
Because you're the capital. Right. And that's the first truth we have, is that if anything's going to happen, we're going to make it happen.
Te Kahui Whetū 2014 was held in Otapoti at Arai Te Uru Marae. Facilitated by Te Reo Ariari through Ngā Kaihau Tū, the participants worked their way through some very intense kororo around IES, pōharatanga and the use of te matapihi o rehua as a tool.
So there needs to be a paper copy, a hard copy.
Kia ora anō, I'm Amavi and welcome to this video update for NZEI Te Riu Roa members around the IES or new roles.
Through all of this, the IES continued to dominate the education sector's attention.
It's not just a makeover, but a complete restructuring.
In early June, a joint NZEI Te Riu Roa Principals Federation forum overwhelmingly expressed a lack of confidence in the government's policy, and NZEI itself launched its Better Plan in May, just before the government's budget. By August, in a nationwide secret ballot, 93% of members voted that they had no confidence in the IES initiative, and a substantial majority determined that we should reject the policy outright. A nationwide day of action in early September called on MPs to adopt our Better Plan.
They're down here calling for support of initiatives that will benefit children directly, things like smaller class sizes and better support for children with
The huge member involvement and wide media coverage of the event pointed to the collective strength and professionalism of NZEI Te Riu Roa. Years of opposing the germ have created a resilience and determination to stand on our values and stay focused on what works for children. Together in the coming months and years, we will continue to advance the cause of quality public education that meets the needs of all children.